Hi, everyone. Welcome to Social Impact Speech Workshop. Today, we will focus on Lesson 7 and we will learn how we can memorize our speech. So, we will learn effective techniques to memorize the speech and how we can build confidence by breaking speech into manageable steps. And we will also understand the importance of practice and repetition. So, why is it important to memorize your speech? Memorizing your speech allows you to focus on delivery rather than reading your notes. So you can deliver the speech more naturally because you remember it. And it helps you connect with the audience because if you remember your speech well, it's kind of natural for you. So you can focus more on actually connecting with the audience rather than reading the notes. And of course, you will feel and appear more confident. So remember, you don't need to memorize every word of the speech, of your speech perfectly. Remember to focus on key ideas and transitions. So how can you do it? Let's check our memorization techniques. And for these techniques, you don't need to use all of them. So I recommend listen to all the techniques and try them out, but you don't have to do, if you want to, you can do all of them, but maybe it's easier just to use one or two that match your personality, match like you feel comfortable using. So you don't have to use all of them. So the first technique that I'd like to talk about is chunking. What is chunking? So sounds like yeah a little funny word, isn't it? So it means separating a big piece into smaller ones. So imagine that, let's say you have a big cake. You cannot eat, of course, maybe someone can, but I think usually it's kind of hard to eat the whole cake, and we won't even enjoy it if we eat the whole cake at the same, at once. So, but if we separate it into small pieces, you can share it with your family and friends, and you can also enjoy it more. It's easier and it's more pleasant. So, when we think about a big project, maybe we tend to kind of feel negative about it. Oh, I cannot do all of that. So, if you separate it into smaller parts, it's easier to handle. It's easier to remember. And so if you break your speech into small sections, introduction, main points, conclusion, or even smaller, so, and you memorize one chunk at a time instead of the entire speech, you focus just on this small part, it's much easier. And it also gives you a feeling of satisfaction. Oh, I learned this. So you have this satisfactory feeling, and you can move on to the next one. So start with the introduction, memorize your hook, and transition into the topic. Then move on to the first main point, and so on. So step by step. Second technique is visual mapping. So visual mapping is not for everyone. Some people don't like it. It's like, oh, I have to do extra work. So if you feel that way, skip it and go on to other techniques. But some people love visual mapping, especially artistic type or for creative type personalities. So visual mapping means kind of making an image of every idea that you want to deliver in your speech, want to convey in your speech, and then visually imagining all these pictures that connect to those ideas and kind of making a map in your mind. So associate each keyword with a visual cue to help you recall your ideas. So for example, let's say you're making a speech on climate change and you're talking about big problem of climate change. So instead of thinking the word problem, you imagine, or at the same time, when you say the word problem, you imagine a picture of a melting iceberg. Then what would be a solution? growing trees would be a solution. So when you say that, you imagine, you visualize a tree growing. And when you talk about your call for action, what do you want people to do to change? You imagine people recycling. And you can write those keywords like and the associated images, or you can even draw simple pictures, like very easy pictures on a big piece of paper or on a whiteboard if you have one, and then create a story. And if you visually remember all these pictures, it can help you remember your speech as well. So give it a try. Yeah, it could be like some people think it's too much work, but some people love it. So it depends on you. And another technique that I really like, this one, technique number 3, going backwards. So what does it mean? When we read, usually we read top to bottom. And because of this, like our minds are kind of automatically scan, like with our eyes, we scan the information top to bottom, and then we kind of, it's easier for us to remember the top. So because the way that we're trained like in school to read. So, and what we can do if we can apply this knowledge that we know that we can easily remember, automatically remember the top, we apply this to focus intentionally on the bottom. So since we tend to naturally forget the ending, and the ending is the most important part of your speech, it's like one of the most important parts. You don't want to forget your ending, right? So you focus on the end intentionally. So you like make a very strong effort to remember your ending, your call for action, like your final examples. So you start by memorizing your ending first and move on then to the example, to the middle part. And then you will notice that actually you don't have to remember the beginning because you already know it, because your mind automatically remembered it. So if you are short on time, that's one technique that I really recommend. It can help you remember quickly. Yeah. So going backwards, focusing on the end of the speech, you make sure you will not forget the ending during the delivery, and you can also speed up your memorization process. Another thing you can do is fill the gaps. And this is a very popular technique for that. Maybe you've seen this in the English textbook exercises. So it helps us learn new vocabulary, and it can also help us remember grammar patterns. So there will be, in a sentence, there will be some gaps, and we need to fill in, like put the correct information. So you can do this on with your speech. So print out your speech and paste some sticky notes on the places that anywhere that you feel like. Maybe first you can start on the key ideas because you will definitely remember those, and try to say it by filling out the gaps as practice, and then gradually increase the covered parts. And there's also like special software applications that you can use to do that. And final technique, or well, maybe it's not really a technique, but just advice, is repetition. It's maybe the basic one, and it's considered to me to be the most effective way to memorize. So animals and birds can remember tricks and words by repeating them. Example is a parrot. So if you say hello, hello to the parrot, then the parrot will answer you hello back because they can remember and mimic your speech. So you can do that. Humans can do that as well, since parrots can. And of course, like your speech is not as simple as just a hello, but it's you would need to practice a lot to memorize it. So the more you practice, the easier it becomes. And what you can do is repetition. So it can get quite boring, yeah, to repeat the same thing over and over. So I recommend combining with other techniques. Like, for example, you can combine visualizing and repetition and try different ways to do this. So if you imagine fun pictures and associate them with parts of your speech, you can remember it easily, and you repeat it many times, then I'm sure you will successfully memorize your speech. And of course, it may seem hard to remember the speech, and because it's long and maybe you haven't done it before. So remember, the more you practice, the easier it becomes. It becomes more natural. And also, it's good to imagine, to visualize your final goals. Like if you imagine how proud, how confident you would feel when you finally memorize the whole thing, and someone can wake you up in the middle of the night and say, like, make your speech, and you're like, la la la, and you will make your speech. That would be so fantastic, right? So imagine your final target, final goal for this, and I'm sure it will be easier. And it takes time and patience, but every step brings you closer to the success. And believe in yourself, which is a very important thing. So let's recap the memorization techniques today. We talked about chunking, which means separating a big piece into smaller ones, visual mapping, making some images that associate to your speech, and making a visual map. And going backwards, focusing on the end, memorizing the end very well, then moving on to the body part, then to the introduction. Filling the gaps, covering parts of your speech, or you can use in like a white pen or sticky notes or just a software to do that, and try to make the gaps wider, bigger as you go. And then the basic one, repetition. The more you repeat the sentence that you want to memorize, the speech, the text that you want to memorize, the more likely you would be able to do that. So remember to focus on ideas, not perfection. Like if you skipped one word or two words, don't worry. Maybe people will not notice. So, of course, but it's important. Yeah, what I'm saying, it's important to keep focusing on your main ideas. And of course, your hook and your call for action are also very important parts. So make sure to memorize those as well. And your confidence and connection with the audience matter the most. So for the workbook task, I'd like to, because you have many different techniques to try, so maybe you don't have so much time to work on the workbook, but just take some notes. Like, which techniques do you like? Which do you prefer? What was different? What was difficult? What was easy? So take some notes, and maybe if you review these notes later, you can find a technique that works best for you. So this is all for lesson 7. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next unit. Thank you.